Hey, deserved listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Before the 90 days, let's watch.
I wasn't happy about exchanging gifts yesterday. And the best way for you to make it up is the following. I just planned a 4-day trip to an amazing island here in Panama. Just one little detail. You need to pay for it.
All right, so it started off okay. She's saying, I wasn't happy with the gift exchange for Christmas, and she's saying it in a non-aggressive tone, which is great. You know, she's very differentiated thing to do. And she says, well, and there's one thing you can do to make it up to me. And I thought, well, hopefully there's something functional at the end of this sentence. Something like, you can get me a new gift that is thoughtful. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but I want something from the heart. Or you could really demonstrate to me that the toothbrush was definitely from the heart, or I don't know, something. But instead, she ends it with, "I already booked a trip, and you have to pay for it." What? Now, if it's affordable to him, then okay. But what if it's not? Or what if it's like really hard on his budget? He does not have a job. He has not worked for months. He is apparently struggling with money right now, and so to force him. And this kind of stuff happens on the show frequently, and I find it to be it's just a really weird manifestation, common weird manifestation of our materialism. You will show me that you love me by spending a lot of money on me. What? Money that you don't actually have. Now, Larissa, she was like that, I remember, and a lot of the clients that I worked with who were like that were typically attachment insecure based on abandonment, growing up, betrayal. And at some point, sometimes early in their childhood, they learned that, well, I'm not going to get love, but I can get money, I can get things. And at least that's some indication that someone cares about me. And so they become hyper-focused on material things and the amount of expenditure that is being made. I talk about this sometimes. In my family growing up, my parents loved us enough that me and my siblings didn't compete really about anything. I have 3 siblings. There were 4 of us. And so when I started treating families and there was a lot of competition between the siblings, it wasn't always the case. Sometimes it was just the way that they were. But sometimes it was evidence of the fact that they were being neglected. And sometimes the kids would hyper-focus on material goods. And at Christmas time, they would say, okay, I got this new pair of shoes, but my sister got a new, stuffed animal, and I know that stuffed animal costs more than my shoes, and so I'm going to complain until you make up the difference between those 2 gifts. And when I would see that at first, I thought, that's completely foreign to me. In my family, that just wasn't even on our radar. And I thought, well, why wasn't it? And why are these kids so fixated? And what's the commonality? Well, the commonality was that all those kids had been neglected, had parents who had issues or whatever. And so I don't know if that's what we're seeing evidence of right now, but I'm guessing we'll never find out her childhood enough to make an hypothesis either way.
How much is this gonna cost? Do you know?
Oh, $2,500.
So he couldn't afford $500 for clothes. I'm guessing $2,500 is going to be difficult for him. But maybe he's like, well, I don't know, I really did screw up the other day, so this is what she wants. Now, I think given what we know about his preference, which he's made pretty clear, I think a real healthy response here might be something like, okay, honey, I want to spend money on that. I technically have that money. And the other thing I always think about on the show is like, how come they're not talking together? I mean, why is it they're planning on getting married. Why is it his financial problems and her job to act like a child to a parent and say, you can afford it? It's like the way I would in the grocery store with my mom when I was 4 years old, and I would say, buy me that thing, or the department store, buy me that. My mom would be like, no, because I'm 4, I don't understand budget and I don't really care. So I don't understand why these adults don't, why. So one response would be like, okay, well, I technically have that money for $2,500, but this is what it's going to mean for us. For us, what it's going to mean is I'm not going to be able to spend any more money for the rest of the trip because I still have rent. I'll show you the budget. Let's look at it. Let's sit down and look at it. So if you really want to spend $2,500 on this trip, given the consequence that it's going to have down the line, then okay. But I think you should know what this does for us. It is our money. We are a couple. So that's one response. The other response could be something like, okay, well, I don't know if I could really afford that. I want to, and I'm sorry for yesterday. Is there some other way I could make it up to you? Is there some way? What if I really got you something that was from the heart that I think that you would really want? That I'm going to tell you, it's probably not going to cost that much because I just can't spend that kind of a money. Let's see what he says.
About not giving me any Christmas gift. Now I'm going to give myself a Christmas gift, and I'm going to pick up something expensive.
So you see that attitude? It's going to be expensive. Not something I want, not something that indicates that he loves me. It's going to have a dollar amount that indicates to me that I'm worth it, which is... So if you had that point of view, which, you know, everyone in Western society has a bit of that, you know, that's... Well, I don't know. Let's see how this works out.
Just, you know, I wish we could have spoke about the cost part of it.
That's cheaper than any other trip that you have taken before with other women.
There it is again. So he could say, well, I was working then. I haven't been working for 6 months. We understand that money doesn't grow on trees? I mean, this is the way 4-year-olds talk to their parents. Buy me that. You bought, you know, my sibling something a year ago, like, I deserve it. I want it. It's like, do you understand how budgets work? Do you understand? I mean, he might be in a position, who knows, where he's thinking, I don't know if I'm going to find work for months. So I might actually lose my house. I might lose my car. I might not even be able to see, like, I don't know. Obviously, maybe he's got $1 million and she knows that, but we haven't heard that much. I wish they would tell us, like, the landscape on that level. Let's see what happens.
I'm not worthy as they were.
You're worth it to me, so I'll do it.
Obedient. That's how I like it.
Okay, so he apparently had the means to be able to do this. He doesn't look like he's going to crumble financially because of it. And then she says, obedient, that's the way I like it. And then she laughs. You know, when she uses those terms, I have a hard time understanding what exactly she's meaning. Does she actually, because if she really means what she's saying, if it's verbatim, that's abusive. If I, for example, with my wife, was looking for her to be obedient, and I did things to test whether or not she would be obedient to me, that's abusive. That's flat out abuse. You're trying to dominate someone. You're trying to control them. I mean, you're consciously saying as much. So not okay. But so there's a possibility that that's what's happening. But her demeanor suggests something else. We also have to ask how he feels about it. You know, does he just feel kind of pressured, or does he feel like he's being abused? I think it's actually in the other category. I think she's using that word, but in a way that is playful, in a way that isn't actually controlling. But I don't know. You tell me in the comments. What do you think? Actually, I'm curious. Do you think that what she's doing is actually abusive, or is it pseudo abuse? You know what I mean? Let's continue watching.
I'm your queen. I deserve it, right?
Yeah, you do. Absolutely. But when I think about it, it's like Jasmine, you know, means more to me than how much money I'm gonna spend on this trip. So the money really shouldn't even matter.
So that implies that he has enough money and that his financial situation isn't that dire and that he's just a budgeter. So, because he's not saying, well, I have to spend this $2,500, but that means I might actually lose my house. Like he's not using that language. So, and perhaps she knew that. Maybe she knew that he's just a saver, and she was pushing to take money out of his savings, not to ruin him.
Talking about his exes just make me think about all the stuff that he has in his house related to his ex-wife, and I don't like it. On your walls, I don't want these stupid, awful colors. Who's gonna combine red and baby blue.
Okay, so it's okay to have a preference. This is the theme with her. It's okay to have a preference. You can say, I don't like those two colors. It's just, I don't like that. Can we change it? Can we work together? It's an entirely different thing to say, those two colors are ridiculous and you're a ridiculous person for having that. Or your ex was a ridiculous. Now, she's also saying that she doesn't want any evidence of his exes in the house. That's totally fine. It makes sense. Not everyone's like this, but a lot of people are. And I'm sure he'd be okay with that. I'm guessing he's not super attached to those things. But anyway, so it's language. And I've said this before, when we say things like that, like that's ridiculous, like across the board, my preference is the preference, it's often because we don't value our own preference. If we truly value our preference, then we are able to stand on that foundation of, well, this is just my preference. It's not everyone's preference. Other people share my preference, but not everyone share. Even if everyone on the planet shared the same preference, it's still your preference. And you can just stand there. You can be like, you don't have to triangulate other people. Just be like, this is my preference. I would like this to be true. But when we feel insecure and we feel like people are going to poke at that, and we have no foundation to stand on because we don't value our own preference, then we feel like we have to triangulate the world and say, that is dumb. Everyone agrees and you're dumb for liking it. It's not okay.
What was she thinking?
The colors look good, and I believe that's my opinion. But
right, so that's differentiated. He's not triangulating other people. He's saying, "Well, I like those colors. That's my opinion." You hear that? I like those colors. That's my opinion. Now he should understand the emotional landscape here and say, "But if you want to change it, I'd be up for it. And if you think that this is evidence that I'm still attached to my exes, then by all means, let's change it, because I don't want you to feel like I'm attached." Like, he should say something along those lines.
I don't know.
Who picked the colors?
It was kind of like a combination between us.
Okay, again, understand the landscape, Gino. Now, she's not making it easy, because if she were to be more differentiated herself and just say something like, so I'm insecure, and when I see what I think to be evidence of your exes, it makes me feel like you're still attached to them, and it makes me feel like therefore you're going to leave me, or you're not really attached to me. And so could you reassure me? 1. 2, could we get rid of those things? Could we just change it? Because for me, it would make me feel a lot more secure. And I know that that's not necessarily logical, and I know that you having decorated your house doesn't mean that you hate me or you're not on my side, but it would just make me feel better. Something along those lines. So she's not making it easy, but he's not reading between the lines. So they're both not doing their part to try to bridge the gap.
And you want me to be there just sitting and having breakfast, looking at those colors, and it's like, oh, this is so lovely. Is that what you want me to do?
So sarcasm, that's a sure sign that we've turned a corner in our unhealthy communication.
I deserve to pick up the goddamn colors, because in a few days I have your more than she did in 7 years.
Yikes. So now raising her voice, I deserve. This is not, the question of abuse versus pseudo-abuse. Pseudo-abuse meaning something that looks abusive, but it's not actually abusive. This isn't boding well.
You don't need to say bad things like
I'm not saying anything bad. Isn't it real? You told me that.
Yeah, just, you don't have to say nasty stuff like that.
And he's doing his best to deal with this kind of language. We could call it abusive. I don't know if we would take it that far, but at the very least, not constructive communication. And instead of responding, which so many people do at their level, he's taking the high road and saying, look, you don't have to talk that way. It's the similar way you talk to children, right? When a child starts to whine or starts to talk like this, you say, well, you don't have to use that. You want to address not the content, but the emotional vibe, because if someone has bad tone, but there's, anyway, point is he's addressing really the core of the matter is like, you don't have to use that language. Now, he's not helping. He could say something like, honey, if you want to change it, let's change it. And if you want me to prove to you that I'm not attached to those women anymore, then, I'll do it. But you don't have to talk to me that way. So he's not saying that beginning. Neither one of them are bridging the gap. Neither one of them are doing their part. I would say she's more to blame for how this has gone. But this doesn't bode well, because I think what's happening for him is he's reaching a point where he's been down this road a number of times, and he's probably already told himself, the next time she does this, I'm just going to say, you don't have to use that language with me, instead of getting in a tit for tat with her. So this doesn't bode well.
Why do you defend her so much?
I'm not defending her. I'm just saying there's no reason to talk bad about her.
You're her lawyer or what? And are you still there?
So, defend her. Again, he's not helping. All he has to do is say, I'm not attached to you anymore. I don't want you to attack her. I don't want you to attack me. I don't want her to attack you. I don't want anyone attacking anyone. If you don't want something to be if you want to change the house, then we can talk about it. It's a 50-50. Maybe I like it that way. We could talk about that. So he's just not commenting on that. He's drawing a line, which is fair. He's just saying you don't have to use that language. You don't have to talk badly about other people. You see the emotion on her face. This isn't just an intellectual exercise for her. This is an insecurity of hers, which she's entitled to, but she could do better by just communicating. Just like, look, I'm just insecure. And the fact that you seem to defend her makes me feel like you don't really love me, but I don't know if that makes any sense. Can you just reassure me somehow? And I wonder if this is also kind of a cultural thing, because even in the United States, honestly, there are different ideas about when you divorce, what that exactly means. And we've seen this on the show before, where people like Gino are still in contact with their exes, and that is very threatening to other people. They're like, who's friends with their exes? That doesn't make any sense. We'll hear people like, was it Julia and Brandon Julia was saying, anyway, there seem to be these notions out there. And again, even in the United States, you'll see a variance. But he's of the culture, apparently, where it's fine, if not preferable, to be friends with your ex, which means that you don't just go off on them, and you don't let other people go off on them. You're no longer with them, but that doesn't mean they're evil or they're a bad person, or that you no longer care about that person as a person or as a past relationship or something. So he's exhibiting that.
Tell me the truth.
No.
This is the same Gino. You. Just call that bitch, stay with her.
Again, he's not helping. But she's, if you just think about how we've got here. Think about what has happened, what he has done. They were working out, or she was working out, he was watching, and she's like, you will pay for this trip, even though I know you don't want to, because you're gonna prove to me that you love me. And he's like, okay. And then she starts to talk about the wanting to change the house, but she says it's ridiculous. So she was insulting right from the beginning and attacking right from the beginning. And he was extremely healthy healthy in terms of his response, not healthy in terms of his ability to see, read through between the lines and actually know what needs to be said, or knows what kind of demeanor needs to happen. But he was being fair. He's like, well, you don't have to talk to me like that. You don't have to use that language. You don't have to talk about her like that. There's no reason. And I kind of like those colors. That's my preference. Now, I don't know how open he is to changing it, but so that was his, way of responding. And now she's basically saying, let's break up because of that. So, in the past with these two, I thought that their fights and her blow-ups looked bad, but they weren't actually bad. But now I'm wondering if it's different.
Me sick. So always the same. It's always the same. You always make me look crazy.
I never said.
Yes, you do. You're always defending that goddamn vision, and you're comparing me to her all the time.
Yikes. Yikes. So this is starting to look scary. When you look at all the behaviors, obedience, you will do this, good boy. I mean, there are a lot. I haven't been commenting on it because it looked benign. It looked like a game, a playfulness that she was playing. But in lieu of this, yikes, big time. Now, underneath that behavior, all the time whenever I've treated perpetrators of abuse, is pain, tremendous, tremendous pain. The control and the abusiveness and the aggressiveness is their pattern of solution to the pain. They experience so much pain and sadness and just complete dysregulation of their emotions, and they think the way to solve that is to control. And if they can just, so what people in this situation will do sometimes, if that's their pattern, if that's what they learned, is as they're starting to come down, they start thinking, okay, how do I resolve this? They'll say, okay, next time I'll just really make sure I have to control everything. I'm going to demand in a different way. I'm gonna suck him in this, it just becomes more and more of a strategy of control and aggression and dominance.
It's kind of new for me, and it's a little scary. It shocks me how Jasmine can get really upset at a moment's notice, to be honest. Her emotional instability gives me concern about our future, and I really don't know where we go from here.
Yeah, so I want to give the caveat that we're only seeing little bits and pieces. Maybe he is a complete jerk face off camera. Maybe he's been doing all those other things. Maybe because she referred to something like, you're always defending her, you're always comparing us. We haven't seen evidence of that on camera, but we understand that we're only seeing a tiny little percentage of what their relationship is actually like. So, yeah. Now, if that's not actually happening, then we could imagine a lot of transferences happening for her. Previous relationships that are being transferred into the present with him.
That's so painful. To tell me that he likes the color and that they pick the colors together, knowing that I get mad at them.
Yeah, you can clearly see the regression there, right? The deep, deep suffering, and probably an historic element to this, that of when she was very young, the kind of unbridled upsettedness and feeling betrayed and abandoned and wronged. It seems like something historic is happening, right now in the present for her. Now, I'll hold out for not really understanding the situation. I'm always speculating as to what's happening. There's a chance that if we heard from her in more detail, and maybe we will, that it would be more understandable and not necessarily a transference, but it certainly looks that way. I mean, you get that vibe of some inner child right now is emerging.
I just want to go home.
And again, let's remind ourselves, all of this is because she wanted to change the colors in his house that she's only seen over video conference. And he didn't say he wouldn't. He just said, I like those colors. That's my opinion. It sounded like he was open. At least there wasn't an indication he wasn't open to changing it. She was attacking the colors, and he's like, well, I like the colors. That's my opinion. And that's all of this is from that. All right, well, if you didn't know already, we have merch and also Cameo. You should be able to click links below to buy t-shirts and mugs. And Cameo, where I can say happy birthday or happy anniversary or just hello if you want to send a gift to someone. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.